What if one election could send shockwaves through the auto industry, shutter factories, kill off entire vehicle lines, and leave thousands of American workers jobless overnight? Sounds extreme? It's not. If Donald Trump returns to the White House with his America First 2.0 agenda, Stellantis, the maker of Jeep, Ram, Dodge, and Chrysler, could be the first major automaker to feel the full force of that political earthquake. This isn't just about tariffs or tweets. This is about the very survival of Stellantis' US operations, and your favorite trucks and SUVs might not be safe. Could thousands of American jobs be lost if Stellantis can't adapt to Trump's next economic move? That's not a far-fetched question anymore. It's a looming reality. As Donald Trump gears up for a potential return to the White House, his renewed push for America First 2.0 is sending shockwaves through global manufacturing circles, and no automaker is more exposed than Stellantis, with key US plants, churning out Ram trucks, Jeep SUVs, and Dodge muscle cars. Stellantis relies heavily on a finely tuned global supply chain. But Trump's strategic plan to slap a universal 10% tariff on all imported goods, yes, including auto parts, could crush that model overnight. Stellantis is particularly vulnerable because it's a multinational hybrid, headquartered in The Hague, Netherlands, with deep roots in France and Italy, yet heavily dependent on the American consumer. While the company has spent the last few years investing billions in North American plants and EV development, much of its production still depends on parts and components imported from Europe, Mexico, and Asia. Under Trump's proposed trade war revival, these parts could suddenly become significantly more expensive, squeezing Stellantis' margins and forcing it to either raise prices, risking consumer backlash, or absorb the costs, which could make US operations unprofitable. And it doesn't stop there. Trump's plan isn't just about tariffs. He wants to revive strict domestic sourcing requirements, pressure companies to build where they sell, and heavily incentivize US-owned automakers over foreign-controlled ones. Stellantis, despite its large US presence, doesn't qualify as an American company in Trump's political narrative. Unlike Ford or GM, which Trump has praised in the past for being red-blooded American brands, Stellantis may find itself labeled a globalist outlier, an easy target for populist rhetoric that blames foreign corporations for lost jobs and hollowed-out towns. This puts Stellantis in a political and economic bind. If Trump wins and follows through on these plans, the company would need to localize even more of its supply chain to the US, a transition that takes years, not months. The risk? Temporary or even permanent plant shutdowns, particularly in areas where profitability already hangs by a thread. We could see layoffs in Michigan, Ohio, Indiana, places where Ram trucks and Jeeps are assembled. That's thousands of American workers who could be sidelined not by market demand, but by a geopolitical chess move designed to punish globalism and reward national loyalty. And there's a deeper irony here. Stellantis has been positioning itself as a job creator in the US, recently committing over $5 billion to new electric vehicle and battery factories across North America. But that long-term investment could be sabotaged by a short-term political earthquake. Trump's America First 2.0 doesn't just challenge Stellantis economically, it questions the legitimacy of its presence on American soil. Will that $5 billion bet on American EVs be enough to buy political protection? Or will Trump's loyalty to legacy US brands override any goodwill Stellantis tries to build? In this high-stakes scenario, Stellantis isn't the only one at risk, but it may be the most misunderstood. While Wall Street focuses on EV forecasts and quarterly deliveries, few are asking the geopolitical question: can a foreign-headquartered automaker survive the next wave of American economic nationalism? Especially when that nationalism is laser-focused on bringing back jobs, even if it means blowing up existing ones. And let's not forget the consumer angle. If Stellantis has to pass along those increased import costs to customers, you could see Ram trucks and Jeep Grand Cherokees spike in price. How will middle-class buyers react when their favorite vehicles suddenly cost thousands more? Will they turn to cheaper, domestically built alternatives from Ford or GM? Or will Stellantis lose critical US market share just as it's ramping up for the next generation of vehicles? The clock is ticking, and Stellantis executives know it. Behind the scenes, they're likely lobbying furiously in Washington, preparing contingency plans, and trying to assess just how far Trump would go. with these new trade barriers. But here's the thing. Contingency plans can only go so far when you're dealing with a political wildcard. Trump's style of policymaking is unpredictable by design. One tweet, one rally statement, or one policy paper leak can shift investor confidence, trigger supplier panic, or even cause union unrest. Stellantis is walking a razor's edge. If they appear too slow to act, they risk backlash from Washington and Wall Street. But if they rush to localize too quickly, they risk overspending and destabilizing global operations that still bring in massive revenue from Europe, South America, and Asia. And then there's the issue of union pressure. The United Auto Workers, UAW, is watching closely. In a second Trump administration, UAW leadership may be forced to take sides, supporting America First ideals that promise job security, or defending Stellantis contracts that depend on global integration. If plant closures or layoffs hit under a Trump-led tariff regime, the UAW could shift its political weight and public messaging, pressuring Stellantis to make even deeper concessions, relocate production, or shutter facilities outright. Labor unrest combined with political hostility. That's a storm no automaker wants to weather. Meanwhile, other automakers, especially Ford and GM, are preparing to capitalize. If Trump's trade agenda punishes foreign-based companies, the big two could double down on their American-made branding, offering competitive pricing and marketing themselves as patriotic alternatives. In such a landscape, Stellantis would be stuck playing defense while trying to protect market share. And don't forget Tesla, completely American, vertically integrated, and eager to scoop up any buyers priced out of Stellantis's more expensive offerings if tariffs spike sticker prices. The implications also stretch across the border into Mexico and Canada. Stellantis relies heavily on its North American network to balance cost, labor, and production efficiency. If Trump imposes new cross-border tariffs or revives his earlier threats to dismantle trade agreements like USMCA, it could unravel years of strategic supply chain planning. Suddenly, engines assembled in Mexico or transmissions from Ontario become liabilities, not assets. Stellantis would be forced to reconsider entire factory footprints, potentially abandoning or downsizing key facilities to avoid tariff penalties. And investors are already starting to ask hard questions. Stellantis stock could face extreme volatility in the run-up to the 2024 election. If Trump's campaign momentum grows, Wall Street may begin to price in the risk of restricted U.S. access, production disruptions, and long-term profitability issues. That, in turn, would affect the company's capital-raising ability, exactly when it needs to spend heavily on EV development, software innovation, and dealer network modernization. A slowdown in cash flow could delay product rollouts, weaken dealer relationships, and put the company even further behind in the high-stakes EV race. Public sentiment is another wild card. Will Americans rally behind Trump's tough-on-trade strategy even if it leads to job losses in their own backyard? Or will they hold companies like Stellantis responsible for not being American enough to dodge the impact? The narrative could quickly shift from Stellantis as a job provider to Stellantis as a foreign opportunist, especially if Trump's media machine frames it that way. Public trust matters, and Stellantis is in danger of losing it if they don't control the narrative fast. And let's not ignore the potential domino effect across the auto industry. If Stellantis struggles to adapt, it could trigger a larger reckoning for other foreign automakers operating in the US. Honda, Toyota, Hyundai. All of them could be next in line. But Stellantis is likely to be the first test case, the early warning sign for what's coming. And if they fail to navigate Trump's America First 2.0, the message will be loud and clear. No global brand is safe in a protectionist America.